In the meantime, the British were engaged in preventing the Gorkhas from overrunning the whole of the northern frontier. The Anglo-Nepal War broke out in 1814. Defeat of the Gorkhalis led to the Treaty of Sugauli, 1815, in which Nepal had to cede all those territories the Gorkhas had annexed from the Raja of Sikkim to the East India Company. In 1817, in the Treaty of Titalia, the East India Commerce reinstated the Raja of Sikkim, who was driven out, restored all the tracts of land between the Mechi and the Tiesta to the Raja, and guaranteed his sovereignty. With the intervention of the British, the Gorkhas were prevented from turning the whole of Sikkim into a province of Nepal, and Sikkim, including the present district of Darjeeling, was retained as a buffer state between Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet. 10 years later, dispute once again arose between Sikkim and Nepal, which, according to the Treaty of Titalia, were referred to the Governor-General. Accordingly, in 1828, Captain Lloyd was deputed to settle the dispute. Along with Mr. J.W. Grant, the commercial resident at Malda, he came to the hills and was attracted by the position of Darjeeling. From a report dated 18th of June, 1829, in which he claims to have been the only European who visited the place, we learn that Lloyd visited the old Gorkha station called Darjeeling for 6 days in February 1829 and was immediately struck with it being well adapted for the purpose of a sanatorium. He was apprehensive of the winter's suggested ging, so he stressed the need to procure the place for the advantage that the Britishers would have, as it would serve as a strategically important position in commanding entrance to Nepal and Bhutan, serve as a British outpost in the Himalayas, serve as a base for the defense of the trade route to Tibet through Sikkim. From its commanding height, the whole of Sikkim and the neighborhood could be observed and protected, a summer resort for British officials to escape the heat in the plains. Lord Bentinck promptly deputed Captain Herbert to examine and map the tract of land along with Grant, with special reference to its strategic and communication benefits. Their reports proved the feasibility of establishing a sanatorium in Darjeeling. General Lloyd was accordingly deputed to start negotiations with the Raja of Sikkim for the transfer of Darjeeling in return for an equivalent in money or land. The negotiations ended in the execution by the Raja of Sikkim of a deed of grant on the LST of Feb. 1835. Deed. The Governor-General, having expressed his desire for possession of the hill of Darjeeling on account of its cool climate, for the purpose of enabling the servants of his government, suffering from sickness, to avail themselves of its advantages, the Sikkim Puti Raja, out of friendship for the said Governor-General, hereby present Darjeeling to the East India Company, that is, all the land south of the Great Rangit River, east of the Balasan, Kahale and Little Rangit Rivers, and west of the Rungno and Mahanadi Rivers. Thus, Darjeeling was gifted to the Britishers. This was an unconditional cessation of what was then a worthless, uninhabited mountain. The land gifted to East India Corps in 1835 did not comprise the whole present Darjeeling. It was a narrow enclave of 138 square miles, about 30 miles long and 6 miles wide. It was entirely surrounded by the Raja's dominions, entry and exit being restricted to a narrow path, which included the sites of Darjeeling and Kurshung towns and touched the plains near Pankabari. What the Raja got in return immediately was a gift parcel: 1 double-barreled gun, 1 rifle, 1 20 yards of red broadcloth, 2 pairs of shawl, one superior quality and the other of inferior quality. The Raja appeared before the Governor-General for compensation. In 1841, the Govt granted the Raja an allowance of 3 yensnasadon per annum as compensation. This amount was raised to over 6,000 dons in 1846. At the beginning, Sikkim was not favorably disposed to the ideas of gifting Darjeeling, but finally circumstances made it necessary as Sikkim needed to be in the good books of the British. Lepcha trouble. Gorkha aggression. Attitude of Tibet uncertain. Nepal and Bhutan, alarmed at British presence in the Himalaya, accused Sikkim of selling out to the foreigners. Tibet, instigated by China, did not look favorably to British presence in the Sikkim Himalayas. Having acquired the hill territory of Darjeeling, General Lloyd and Dr. Chapman were sent in 1836 to explore the tract, to ascertain the nature of the climate, and to investigate the capabilities of the place. They spent the winter of 1836 and a part of 1837 here and on the basis of their report, it was decided to adopt Darjeeling as a sanatorium. By 1840, a road was built from Pankabari, and staging bungalows built at Pankbabari and Mahaldaram. A hotel was started at Kursong and one at Darjeeling. In Darjeeling itself, about 30 private houses were erected. In spite of all these, most of the tract that now comprised Darjeeling consisted of uninhabited, impenetrable virgin forests. So the major problem faced by the administration was total native settlers. In 1839, Dr. Campbell, the BR resident in Nepal, was transferred to Darjeeling as superintendent. He devoted himself to the task of developing the station, attracting immigrants to cultivate the mountain slopes and stimulating trade and commerce. Every encouragement was given to the settlers, who received grants of forest land, and the success with which life met can be gauged by the fact that the population rose from not more than 100 in 1839 to about 10,000 in 1849, chiefly by immigrants from the neighboring states of Nepal, Sikkim, and Bhutan, where Rajas were despotic and where slavery was prevalent. No one has cared to examine the source from where this figure has been derived. When Dr. Campbell made this remark, he was talking of the area around Observatory Hill, or Mahakal, which contained about 20 hills because the area had been deserted by a large number of Lepchas who had migrated to Nepal. Due to his Campbell's efforts, by 1852, an excellent sanatorium had been built, a hill corps had been established to maintain order and communication. No, less than 70 European houses had been built. A bazaar and a jail had been built. Revenue over 50,000 had been raised. A system of justice had been introduced in line with the tribal system. Forced labor had been abolished. Road had been constructed. Experimental cultivation of tea, coffee, and fruits had been introduced. In the meantime, British and Sikkim relations soured. The Raja of Sikkim was a mere cipher in the hands of the powerful Pagla Dewan, PM. The increasing importance of Darjeeling under free institutions was a constant source of jealousy and annoyance to the Diwan. According to Sir Joseph Hooker, every obstacle was thrown in the way of a good understanding between Sikkim and the British government. When in 1849 the Pagla Dewan arrested Campbell and Hooker, the British sent a fugitive expedition against Sikkim in 1850. An annual grant of over $6,000 was stopped, and the British annexed 640 square miles of additional territory from Sikkim. It comprised the entire Sikkim Morung or Terai, i.e. the Siliguri subdivision, and in the hills, the whole southern part of Sikkim, between the Great Rangit and the plains of India, and from Nepal on the west to the Bhutan frontier and the Teesta River on the east. Impact: Raja of Sikkim confined to mountainous hinterland and cut off from all access to the plains except through British territory. Welcomed by inhabitants as they had to pay a small and fixed tax to the treasury at Darjeeling, and assets to Darjeeling as increase in population, suitability for tea, and connected Darjeeling on the south with British districts of Purnea and Rangpur Jalpaiguri. Raids from Sikkim, however, continued. In 1860, the British occupied Rinchingpong. In 1861, Ist Febirstad, Kolanras Gowler, and Ashley Eden marched from Darjeeling and reached the Sikkimese capital of Tumlong. The Diwan fled and the old Raja abdicated in favor of his son. On March 28, 1861, Ashley Eden signed a treaty with the new Raja. This treaty was of great advantage to Darjeeling, as it ended the annoyances caused to its inhabitants and secured full freedom for commerce. A road from Darjeeling to Teesta was constructed. Sikkim undertook to complete the remaining part. In the meantime, trouble arose with the adjoining state of Bhutan. The Bhutanese were constantly raiding and plundering the areas of Darjeeling. There was also rumors of a planned attack on Darjeeling. In 1863, Ashley Eden was deputed to negotiate with Bhutan. The British envoy was openly insulted and returned to Darjeeling. In the winter of 1864, a military force was dispatched to Bhutan, and the whole of Bhutan Duars was captured. In November 1864, the Treaty of Sinchula was executed, in which the Bhutan Duars, with the passes leading into the hills, and Kalimpong were ceded to the British. The Darjeeling district can be said to have assumed its present shape and size in 1866 is 1234 square miles. So 1866 marks an epoch in the history of Darjeeling. Peace was established on all fronts. Hence began the march to progress and civilization.